Okay, we're gonna get started again. Welcome back to CakeFest 2024 live from Luxembourg. Make sure you're hashtagging us, letting us know where you're watching from and if you are enjoying the conference so far. I cannot say enough good things about the Passbolt team helping us put the whole event together this year. And now we're gonna introduce our keynote speaker of the event on behalf of Passbolt, representing the team. Please everyone welcome Juan Ramirez.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello to you all online. I'm really pleased and honored to be presenting here in front of my fellow colleagues, but in front of this community that I've been exchanging with for a few years now. Seeing them live, it's even more impressive than seeing your code, which was already impressive. So I'm really glad to be here. I'm going to talk about what we like at Passbolt of CakePhP, the tools we use. So welcome to my presentation, Passbolt bread and butter, so our favorite at Passbolt. I'm Juan Ramirez, I'm a web developer working at Passbolt now for 4 years. I've been working with Cake for 9 years. Co-author of the code is Ishan Vyas, who is a core developer at Passbolt, developing the API with me. Very talented developer. It's a great pleasure to work with you, Ishan, because I know you are listening. So you are also here with us. You'll see some code during the presentation, some nice stuff, some horrible stuff. So it's not only me writing this, it's also Ishan. Right, so I'm going to introduce Passbolt quickly. A quick overview. I'll talk about the API. Passbolt is more than the API. We have also the browser extension. We have all kind of other, we have the mobile application. Here I'm focusing on the API. This is what we use CakePhP for. I'm going to talk about three topics. First is dependency injection, how we use it at Passbolt, how it changed completely our way to structurize our code, how it solved the problem I will describe. Then I'll talk about performance, little tricks that we applied in the past month to boost the performance of our CakePhP application. And then I'll come back again. You know me, you don't have a presentation with me without talking about tests. So how we make sure that the quality of our code stays high. So Passbolt in a nutshell. Yes, this is working. So quickly, here is exactly, this is taken from the website. Passbolt, you are going to manage passwords that you are going to share with people. So you can share a bunch of passwords to one particular user. You can group your users into groups, and you will be able to share your passwords to a certain group. You can refine the permission of the users. So the creator will be owner, but you can add additional owners, additional editors, and additional readers only of that password. You can regroup your passwords in folders. That also enables you we've seen some customers using this extensively. They structure basically the architecture of their company is reproduced in the folders. You can share the folders to a user. You can share the folders to groups. So you'll have a lot of permission. I'm mentioning this because I'll go a bit in the code using that example of permissions. So, and you can repeat it over and over. So Passbolt, we have 3 solutions. We have a community solution, which is open source, which has absolutely no hidden cost. It's you use it. You have the base features of Passbolt. We have a business solution that has extended features. And we have the cloud solution, which is almost the same as the business. There are a few differences, but we host it for you. So, of course, the core is that you host your own passwords, and this is the core concept of Passbolt, but we have also cloud solutions for people who are not affine with that or want to spare the cost of maintaining a server. And it's not that I'm trying to sell you Passbolt, it's that this reflects the architecture of our code. We are going to write an endpoint, for example, a controller that is going to serve passwords. But in the business solution, we are going to add some fields, for example, or some filters. So for one same controller, we are going to have different responses depending on the solution that we are serving. And you want to avoid spaghetti, you all guys know, I mean, in the code at least. And we don't want to have switches in the controllers. We want that our controller be the same for all the solutions. And thanks to dependency injection, and this is where I come, we are going to be able to inject different, the flavor of, depending on the solution. So I did last year already a presentation on dependency injection in CakePhP. You can click on that. I will share the link to the presentation at the end. You can have a look at it. I'm still going to talk quickly about it because now the stage is a bit bigger. And I think it's a tool you should really consider using if you face one of the situations I will explain, I will present. So obviously, you're going to use external libraries. For example, we store on the cloud, we use the Google Cloud Storage for storing the avatars of the users. We have multi-factor authentication vendors, GWT authentication, LDAP. We have these vendors, and these we can't integrate them in our tests. We want to have fast tests. And if you want to mock what these vendors return to you, you want to be mocking that. And this is where the dependency injection tool is very useful. We could do without it, but just for test aiming, we love it. So I'll take just a quick example. On the community or business solution, since you host your data, the avatars will be stored in DB, but they are cached, and they will be cached on a temporary folder. On the cloud, we use the Google Cloud thing. So here is how the code looks like. I know it's a bit bushy, but you have, so this is the avatars view controller. We inject the file system that we are going to use. It is an interface. It's not a class as such. And then we have our service that is going to itself have the file system adapter injected in it. So this code stays the same, being on community or being on cloud. And in application.php, we are going to inject to tell what is the file system that is used. So in the base application, we inject the local file system adapter. So it's going to be written on file. We specify where is the cache folder located. All this is very useful for tests. This is not to make things overcomplicated, but when you write tests, you want to specify where am I going to store my test avatars, and then make sure that they've been written. And then in the plugin, because we split our code in plugins, the cloud solution has a plugin that the community doesn't have. We're just going to overwrite that file system adapter. We're going to say, okay, now the concrete is not anymore the one on the file storage. It's something we're like made ourselves, but that uses the cloud vendor, the Google vendor. And we're going to say, as an argument, it takes which organization we're handling with, so it's going to store it in a particular directory for that organization. That's it. So showing you that it's very simple. It's very simple to use, and this is what makes our code very clean. And to test, so I'll show a few things here. This is a trait that we use for testing integration tests with avatars. This test has a tag. This method has a tag before. So before every test that are using that trace, so the test case using that trace, we are going to run this, and what it's going to do, it's going to say, okay, we are going to mock the service. We are not using cloud because this will make our tests very slow. We're using the local file storage, and we're going to store this in a temporary folder test. And so this done, you just have to use the trait. We just have to use the trait in your test, and the image storage service is mocked. So briefly, there's more example of that in my previous presentation last year, but this is how dependency injection solves our problem of different solutions and how we solve that, and I really love it. Yeah, Olympics starting today. We're going to do a bit more acrobatic stuff. It doesn't mean you have to do it. Actually, I would recommend you not to do it, but we are doing it. It's using events. So we try to reduce the use of events. It can become a bit hard to follow. But we had a problem. I can show you quickly. Passbolt has a command. And if I run beancake Passbolt, I'm going to have the list of all the Passbolt commands. And this list is different if I'm on Pro or if I'm on Community. All the community commands are available in the Pro. Just go up. But for example, here you'll see there's a license check command, which is going to check that your license is valid. This is obviously available only in the Pro solution. So we needed to inject into our Passbolt command the list of the commands that are available. And this, we do it because, fortunately, there is an event called console.build commands, which is going to, when initiating the command, I can see Marcus is laughing, so yeah, don't do that. When we are going to throw a command, Cake is going to look at, okay, which are the commands available. So here I'm going to have all the commands available. If I'm on Pro, I have the license check command. If I'm on CE, I don't have it. It's not even in the code. And there's another event, which is the application build container, which is triggered when the container gets created. So as smart as we are, what we did, we say, okay, we're going to listen to the first event. We're going to have the list of the commands, and we're going to put in a variable, in a property of that listener. And then when the container is created, we're going to inject it in the container. So it will be injected in the Passbolt command, and that's how we did the hack. So I'm just giving here a little example of something a bit fancy you can also do with the dependency injection service. So yeah, that's it. If you want more about the dependency injection, check last year's presentation. It's really cool. And thing is, it's a very powerful tool, but it can be very, at some point, it can become a bit too spaghetti. I know, for example, that other frameworks encourage you to use only the injection. I've worked in a company in the past where they were doing everything by the book, everything hexagonal, and hexagonal is not always very square. At some point, you just had interfaces everywhere that you didn't really need. So define well where you're going to use that service injector. In the beginning, we were playing a bit around. Now we know how we use it. We use it when we are injecting some external vendors, only for test purpose. And when we have a service that is going to be distinct between our solutions. And then we know that for community, we have that service, and for Pro, for business solution, we have generally a service extending the community one and doing the extra job. So that's it for dependency injection. Now I'm going to talk about performance. It's no rocket science. It's also not good. This is where it's not going to be this is where it's going to start looking ugly at some places. And I'm really looking forward to you guys, Cake experts and less experts, to tell us if you've gone through same problems, if you find yourself other solutions. We're really curious. So one obvious way to enhance performance is pagination. We have users where it got for us very slow. It's organizations that had thousands of passwords. Like you had the users that has 10,000 passwords. When the API was serving this 10,000 password, it was pretty slow. On top of that, as you've seen, we have a complex permission system, because you can have a direct permission. The password is yours. You can have a password that's been shared with you, that's been shared through a group with you, that's been shared because it's a folder that's been shared to a group you belong. It can be pretty complex. So you want to reduce the output of the response, the size of the response. For this, we are using that very net vendor, CakePhP API pagination. But we found out that still we could improve performance by, so what the paginator does, it's going to return you your set of data, and it's going to tell you what is the amount of data that he has returned, but he also needs to know what is the overall count. Now, if you don't paginate, he's still going to do the count. So you're counting 2 times. You are counting the amount of passwords, 10,000 passwords that have been retrieved, and you return the number 10,000. That is, again, the same query. That includes all the permission filtering. So we've done that extension where if there is no filtering, if there is no application, pagination applied, just don't recount. Take the num results that you had returned. Sounds simple, but for us, it was a very big gain. So this is a PR probably following that we'd like to submit. Then what we saw is that, yeah, hydration has a cost. Hydration, you know what it is. We retrieve the data from the database. It's some arrays, and Cake, by default, is going to hydrate, which means transform all these arrays into entities, resource entities, user entities. This has a cost. It doesn't have a big cost if you retrieve a little amount of data, but if it's big, you might want to disable that. So what you lose by doing that is that you don't have entities. So if you had calculated properties, you lose them. But here we are in an index. So, you know, we're just displaying raw data. We're not checking properties of one single logged in users, for example. So that's all right. But this is what we've started doing, disabling hydration. And then we still had some calculated fields. For example, if you take resource, this is what we call passwords. You have a password, and we wanted to know if it's shared or not to display the icon. Is this password shared? So we were counting the number of permissions that was associated. From the moment where you use that format result, which is really useful, but this format result has a collection interface. Here you see as a signature, and that means that there's going to be, again, an hydration. So we try to avoid that as much as possible. For example, calculating the fields directly in SQL. I mean, these are very simple calculations that you can do here. Now you have to be careful. It's also harder to maintain, harder to follow for the fellow developers or yourself in a few weeks. So there's a limit there. But we gain performance by using this instead of formatting result. Another case where we're using the format result is that underscore join data property when you have some belongs to many associations. We didn't want to have that served to our clients. So we had to do an iteration and remove the join data. It forces us to do a format result. And the way to avoid that is that we've created our own Passbolt belongs to many class. And this is really ugly, but it does the job. So it's going to iterate and remove the join data, which is needed. You can't get rid of it at the very beginning, but you can get rid of it before it's served. And this is also a PR that we will like to submit, because I'm sure we're not the only one facing that, and that join data is not required necessarily. So with this, we had already improved a lot our response time, combining the two. The number I have is around like 30% improvement. We got really faster with that. This was costing a lot. But still, we were a bit too slow. So we looked at where we are really, where we were still losing time. And the last iteration that was actually happening was the datetime, because datetimes are created into objects, and you have 2 datetimes per entity, and not only 10,000, because we each have at least one permission, maybe more. So you're at 50,000, maybe roughly, iterations of datetime, which is not needed. Still, we need a proper datetime, because we serve the mobile application. It's very sensitive on datetime, on the format, the browser extension too, of course. So you have to take care of the timestamps. You have to take care about the time zone. And what we did as a quick shot, so first I tried to calculate it with SQL, and it worked. It's difficult, but it worked the same. And then you have Postgres, because Passbolt works with Postgres and MariaDB and MySQL. I had to do it again for Postgres, and then Cedric told me, did you try, using just the PHP normal, simple vanilla? I'll call it vanilla, which is absolutely not vanilla, but it's CakeFest, so let's call it vanilla datetime type. And what this thing does is simple. Instead, if you look into the data time, Cake 1, You will see here it's a bit complicated. The rest we use it, but this method, many2PHP, is the one taking, okay, we've took the data from the database, how do we display that? And here we're just using the, what are we using? Yeah, the date method from PHP. It does exactly the job. And this was a very big performance improvement. So we've reduced the time, this time just by that one line, by 40%, the response. On big organizations, if you have a very small set of data, don't bother with that. But for us, that was very nice. So again, something we might want to contribute to. We'll have to discuss, but I think this will interest some people. So these are the little things that we tried in the last months to improve the performance at Passbolt. And if you guys have ideas, just let me know after when the question and answer interaction. Feel free, we are really looking forward to lose all this little noise in the performance. So this takes me to the last part of my presentation. It's representing the test fixture factories. I'll keep it small. I'll just show you something heavy for lunch. You'll be full. This is the vendor. I have to mention Nicolas Masson, who co-developed it. You will find the credits in the repository. I'll show you an example of how we write our tests. So here is an example. For me, a test is, above everything, a documentation tool. It is there to explain you what the code does. You have we call the 3 A's, the orange part, where you're going to set up the protagonist of your test, and you have the act, so the action, and then you have the assert, where you're going to see, so does the action do what it was expected to do? This is only the orange part. What we see is that we want to create 2 users. There's going to be an owner, so apparently a resource owner, and there's going to be a user who's going to lose the permission on a resource. And it's going to be 2 resources. So here we make user factory make 2. In the make, you can put, I'll show you, you can put everything. I haven't tried putting a potato, but I'm sure you could come something out. So here we make 2. It's going to return us 2 users. The user method here is a homemade method where we basically say that user will have the role user. We have 2 roles in Passbolt. We have admins and we have users. So we say we want just 2 users and persist that, put it in a database. And then we'd like 2 resources. They should have permission for both, the owner and the user losing permission. And it should have secrets. Secrets is the encrypted password. So for the 2 users, we persist. And we are going to create also in that scenario that the user losing permission will have access, will have decrypted ones, only the resource that was viewed. The resource that is not viewed, he will have never decrypted it. We log in as owner, and we are going to remove to that user the permission. This is where the act starts. And what we expect is that the resource that was viewed is expired. We have an expired field. Because it has been viewed and the user that had viewed it lost permission, we have to inform the other users having still access to that resource that they should rotate their password because the user has lost access to it and he had access to it. But if he didn't have access to it, we don't have to expire it. He never had access to it. And this is how we write in a pretty readable and easy writable, because autocompletion there works fantastically with your IDE. This is how we write a test that is easy to maintain and easy to read, and that is easy to write. Because when we write tests, we don't wonder, am I going to write again a test? How late is it? Do I still have coffee? You know, it just goes out very simply. There are other tools that the factories propose, but this is in a nutshell how we do. So you see in the make we've put a numeric. You can put nothing. It will give you one entity. You can also put another entity in that case. User losing permission is an entity. Since it's already persisted, it has an ID, and the factories will know, oh, this thing already exists, so I'm not going to recreate it, because otherwise I will have anyway a conflict with the ID, which is unique. So just throw anything you want in the factories and be surprised. And this is a little teaser of what is coming in the next version of the factories. It's been always, the pain point in tests. One of the pain points in tests is the database. You don't want to access to the database. You have to write. You have to clean. Both have their price. And just this is for fun, huh? But you can code and have fun. I mean, it's just a try. What we created is a select query mocker. So there is a method already in Cake to mock the output of a table. So to explain you, here I'm creating 2 countries. As you've seen, I just put foo and bar. You can also put a string. If you put a string, you will know, oh, this is the default display field. I think this is how it's called. So we'll create a country with the field name being foo, a second one, because if you put an array of array, he knows, oh, he's creating me 2 entities here. So we got our 2 countries. We use the select query mocker, mock. So this is the test case. And the country factory, he will know country factory, this is associated to the countries table. So I'm going to mock the countries model. And now, when I do get countries find, I get 2 countries. But if I do country factory count, this is a convenient tool to directly query the database. It is not the same table registry as the CakePhP registry. So it will bypass all the before finds. It is really going into the database. It's a tool I like to use, when I do my assert part. So when you query with the countries table, you get 2 countries. But when you look at the database, there is actually no country in the database. You'll never get around at some point integrating the database in your test. It's a have to, especially if you have different if you support different database engine, Postgres, MySQL. But here, if you were to test something in a controller and test things that are not really relative to fetching the data, but rearranging data, you could well consider using that. It's a step towards the dream of mocking the database. And it's mocking the database. So this is what's coming soon in the test fixture factories. And then another tool that is very light, that is almost invisible, which is good as a tool, I'd say, but is very powerful, is something we've developed actually before, back the time Cake used, so Cake uses the static fixtures, and by knowing which fixtures were loaded in a test, it would know which database needs to be cleaned. The solution has evolved. Now it uses transaction. And transaction, well, we wrap the whole test in a transaction. At the end of the test, we roll back. The database is clean again. It's faster. It's cleaner. But we have another solution. This is the one we're using. Call it the test suite lite. So how easy to? It's very easy to use. You need to use the vendor composer, install it. And then in your test case, for example, here we have an app integration test case that we will use for all our integration tests. You use truncate dirty tables. If you use that trait, the test suite lite knows, oh, I have to clean here. If you don't use it, it knows I don't have to clean, you spare time. So if you are doing pure unit tests, don't use that. If you had interaction with the database, use it. And what it's going to do, it's going to clean the database before the test starts, not after. Because all the other solutions clean after. It cleans before. If you want to know how, check another presentation of mine. This is one of the first I did, I think 2021. Or you can just go on the vendor. And the magic about that is that at the end of your test, your database is dirty. You still have the data in the database that has been used by the test. And I don't use it often, but the day I don't understand why my test is not working, and I go and look in the database, did I insert the right data? What's wrong here? I love it. Because I know what's in the DB, and that's I haven't found that in any other libraries, any other frameworks, very famous frameworks. And I'm working on making this universal, working on any frameworks, including PHP, vanilla PHP or simple PHP, by injecting a PDO, and then it will take the PDO, and then what we can do is Cake adapters, because the connection manager can easily extract a connection into a PDO object. So we would just have the same for Laravel, for Symfony. And this would come from the Cake world. So I'm really looking forward to show that on a big stage. And of course, the first product will have been Cake-based, and it would be nice for Cake also. So again, it's not complicated. I think you should try it, and it's very fast. And this takes me to the end of my presentation. So thank you for the Cake. Thank you to the Cake developers. You made my career. If I didn't have Cake, I would be doing something else. But still, I'm happy that there's Cake. It helped me find Passbolt, fantastic company. The product is good, but the team is good. It's really nice to work with you guys. It's very nice to collaborate with the Cake community. So a sincere thank for that. Here are a few links. The Passbolt API. You can contribute by adding a star. That's the easiest contribution you can do. And then if you want to push some code, if you want to add your issues, feel free. We have a community forum if you feel lonely. This is a link to the Fixture factories. Guys, seriously, give it at least a try. Because there is a moment where, as your application grows, you can't maintain the static fixtures. It's impossible. This is the link to this presentation, and this is the QR code for this presentation. There is no virus, so if you want, just type the URL. If you want to come back to the presentation, have a look at the code. In most of the code I've shown, there was a link to the code, so if you click on it, you will go to GitHub. Our code is open source, so you will have access to it. And that's it for me. If you had questions, I can come back to other slides. If you want to see something again in slow motion, I'm happy. Otherwise, thank you very much for being here.